Good morning. Hi, how are you? Okay, I will introduce myself. My name is Sri Devi. I'm from Ernakulam. I completed graduation and post graduation in biotechnology and I worked as a biotechnologist. Then for a few years I worked as a medical coder. In 2017 I started my career as a full-time home tutor, and in 2022-23 I worked as a medical coding tutor in a private institute. Then again I continued my career as a home tutor. In 2025 I joined Angle BLearn as a full-time tutor. That's about my profile. Okay, so today our topic is Calvin cycle. So what do you know about Calvin cycle? You have any idea? You don't know. Okay, so Calvin cycle have connection with photosynthesis. You know what is photosynthesis? Yes, photosynthesis in the presence of sunlight, plants producing what? Glucose by using water, carbon dioxide in the presence of sunlight. Okay, sunlight. And also what are the other thing? Pigment. Yes, chlorophyll. Producing what? Glucose. Okay, so they absorb water and carbon dioxide, and chlorophyll are converted to glucose in the presence of sunlight. This is what happens in case of photosynthesis that we studied in our low grade classes, that you know. Okay, this Calvin cycle have connection with photosynthesis. How? Because photosynthesis have two phases, light phase and dark phase. Phase means PHASE, phase. Okay, phase. So the light phase which happens in the daytime, this happens in the night time, or we can say in the absence of light. Okay, this dark phase is otherwise called what? Calvin cycle. You got it? So the Calvin cycle is otherwise called dark phase. Okay, so what actually happens in the Calvin cycle or the dark phase, that we will discuss. This Calvin cycle is otherwise called Calvin-Benson cycle because this reaction, this dark phase, are invented by the Calvin and Benson. Okay, these are the two scientists, Calvin and Benson, and after the invention of this dark phase, the cycle is termed as Calvin-Benson cycle or simply Calvin cycle. Okay, and why we using the term cycle here? This is a pathway. Okay, this is a pathway. So now why we using the term, not using the term pathway? Here we using normally the term cycle. Why? Because this is the main chemical of this pathway, and this chemical is produced again after each round of process. That's why it's called a cycle, because the step first is repeated after every turn. Okay, that's why it's called what? Cycle. We got it. So what is the use of this cycle? Why we need this Calvin cycle or dark phase? What is the use of this cycle? Carbon dioxide fixation. What happens if there is no fixation happens? Means if there is no carbon dioxide fixation happens, what will happen? Have you think about that topic? Means if the carbon dioxide, if the atmospheric carbon dioxide it's not utilized, what will happen? Yes, atmospheric carbon dioxide level become high. It will affect directly or indirectly to the living beings, mainly the humans and the animals. So it will lead to some terrific results. Okay, it's not, it will definitely, it will not be good results. So the plants fixing this atmospheric carbon dioxide to convert them a useful product. What will be the useful product? Yes, the end product is glucose. Okay, glucose have how many carbon atoms? How many atoms glucose have? 6. Glucose is a 6 carbon compound. What is the full form of? Means what is the formula? C6H12O6. So 6 carbon atoms needed for glucose production. So these 6 carbon are getting from this carbon dioxide. You got the connection? Why the Calvin cycle is needed? What is the use of carbon dioxide fixation? How the glucose is produced? You got the connection? You got the topic? Okay. So this carbon dioxide fixation and the production of glucose, these events have 3 major stages or main stages, that are carboxylation, reduction, regeneration. You have to understand these 3 steps: carboxylation, reduction, regeneration. Again I am repeating: carboxylation, reduction, regeneration. Okay, and before going to the cycle, where is the location of this dark phase? It always happens in the chloroplast. What is chloroplast? It is a cell organelle of plant cell. So inside chloroplast, what is present inside the chloroplast? Yes, the pigment chlorophyll. And where is the chlorophyll? It is inside the thylakoids. Chlorophyll are inside the thylakoids. You remember this kind of structures inside the chloroplast. Inside this thylakoids, the chlorophyll is filled. And what is the matrix? What we called the matrix of chloroplast? What is the matrix of chloroplast? It is called stroma. It is called stroma. Stroma is the what? Stroma is the content or cytoplasm of chloroplast. So inside this stroma what happening? This dark phase happening. You got it? So the dark phase happening inside the chloroplast means inside the stroma. We can say it happens inside the stroma. Okay. 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 So what will be the product, or what is the product of light reaction? No, the glucose is not produced in the light reaction. In the light reaction, the products are this ATP and this NADPH. These are the energy currencies. Energy currency of cell is ATP and another one is NADPH. These are produced as a result of light reaction, and these are utilized in the dark phase, and finally we getting what? We getting glucose. Okay. The photosynthesis have two part. After completing the two part, we getting the end product glucose. You got it? Okay. So this ATP and NADPH are the cell currency, the energy currencies which are created and stored in the cell. What is the full form of ATP? What is the full form of ATP that you already studying in high school and also in the 11th grade? What is ATP? Adenosine triphosphate. Yes, adenosine triphosphate. And what is NADPH? Nicotinamide, adenine, nicotinamide, adenine, dinucleotide phosphate. If you don't know, please write it down to your notebook. Nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide phosphate. This is the full form of NADPH. NADPH and ATP, these are the high energy forms. Okay, these are the high energy forms. And ADP, NADP plus, these are the low energy forms. These are the low energy forms. I am saying this all for your knowledge, because these are the basic knowledge you have to understand while you studying a cycle. Not only in biology, in case of chemistry also, you have to understand what is ATP, what is NADPH. Okay, so ATP and NADPH are the high energy forms, and ADP and NADP plus, you can see a plus sign, these are the low energy forms. Low energy forms. Okay, you got it? Okay. So I think I shared some basic informations so you can understand the things clearly. Okay, so I'm erasing these all things. Okay, so first step is carboxylation. What is carboxylation? This is the fixing process of carbon dioxide. The fixing process of carbon dioxide into stable organic intermediate, because carbon dioxide means carbon plus oxygen. This carbon should be fixed for the production of glucose. So this carbon dioxide are fixed. How the carbon dioxide are fixed? The carbon dioxide fixed with the help of ribulose bisphosphate. Ribulose bisphosphate, RUBP. The real name is ribulose 1,5. You can see here. Ribulose 1,5 bisphosphate is the real name, but normally we say ribulose bisphosphate, RUBP. And this combination, the combination of carbon dioxide and ribulose bisphosphate is catalyzed by the enzyme called Rubisco. Rubisco, the full name is ribulose bisphosphate carboxylase oxygenase. Here you can see the ase, suffix ase. Ase means it's an enzyme and it's catalyzed. What is catalyzed? Catalyzation means if adding a chemical to a process, a chemical process, the chemical reaction will be in a high rate, or increase, the rate will increase. So for increasing the rate of reaction, if we add a chemical, that is called catalyzer. Okay, so here the catalyzer is Rubisco enzyme. So because of this, what happens? Carbon dioxide, RUBP, what will happen? Here 3-PGA, 3-phosphoglycerate acid is produced here. A means acid. Okay, this is a 3-carbon compound. Here you can see this. Carbon dioxide, RUBP, are fixed because of Rubisco. Rubisco present here from the end of the cycle. Rubisco is present because of Rubisco and producing 3-PGA. It's a 3-carbon compound. You got it? So this is first step, carboxylation. What happens in carboxylation? Atmospheric carbon dioxide and comes and bind with ribulose bisphosphate and produce a 3-carbon compound called 3-PGA. 3-PGA means 3-phosphoglycerate. 3-phosphoglycerate. Okay, this is the first product in Calvin cycle. Next step is what? Reduction. What is reduction? You means reducing something. So in case of chemistry, biology, physics, reduction means giving electrons. Electrons are giving to some atoms or groups. That means reduction. Oxidation means gaining some electrons, like gaining some electrons to some groups or atoms. Okay, that you should remember while studying the cycles or pathways, because it's a very important thing. So reduction, what is reduced here? The phosphate groups electrons are donated in this reduction phase. You got it? Okay. So reduction means giving or donating electrons. In case of Calvin cycle, phosphate groups are reduced. That means phosphate groups are giving to the next creating products, and also electrons also donating to the next creating products. You got it? So what happens in reduction? This ATP and NADPH that already got from the light cycle or light reaction, they are reduced. This triphosphate become diphosphate, ADP. What is ADP? Adenosine diphosphate. Here this was triphosphate. One phosphate group is donating to the next forming product, so it become ADP and NADPH. Here also phosphate group is added, also the electrons also added to the G3P. G3P is a new product here. Then it become low energy compounds that I already mentioned. So what will produced here? Again G3P, it's a 3 carbon compound. What is G3P? Glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. Glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. Glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. Glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate is produced here by the reduction process. Reduction means the phosphate groups, the electrons are added to the G3P for the formation of G3P. Okay. So glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate is produced here. So you got the second step. From 3-phosphoglyceraldehyde, glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate is forming because of reduction. So what are reduced there? Phosphate groups and electrons are added to the G3P product, and it is a 3 carbon compound. You got it? Okay. So the next stage is regeneration. Regeneration means remaking. Who should be remade here? RUBP. Okay, because this cycle need RUBP for the carbon dioxide fixation. So RUBP should be recreated or regenerated there. So from G3P, glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate, what will happen? Some molecules, G3P molecules transported from chloroplast to the stroma for the production of glucose, and some will enter into next stage, that is called regeneration. With the help in this regeneration, Rubisco is present from that point. Okay, and this the glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate become ribulose 5-phosphate. Ribulose 5-phosphate. Look at the carbon number. It's a 5 carbon compound. Okay, ribulose 5-phosphate. And what happens here? Again, here the phosphate groups are added. That's why it become 5-phosphate. Okay, ATP giving phosphate groups, and again they become 6-ribulose 1,5-bisphosphate. Okay, so when this phosphate groups coming and adding to 6-ribulose 5-phosphate, they become 6-ribulose 1,5-bisphosphate. You got it? After this process, what will happen? Rubisco become more active. For what? For fixing the atmospheric carbon dioxide. Okay. Again the cycle will repeat like the same. This is actually happens in Calvin cycle. So what happened actually in this cycle? The atmospheric carbon dioxide come and bind with RuBP, ribulose bisphosphate, and it become 3-phosphoglycerate acid, and reduction happens there from ATP and NADPH. The phosphate and electrons are added to the 3-PGA, and it will become glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. This glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate are transported from chloroplast to stroma for the production of glucose, and the remaining glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate, to which again the phosphate groups are added, and it become ribulose 5-phosphate, and again it become ribulose 1,5-bisphosphate. Here again the Rubisco enzyme get activated, and it will continue the cycle of carbon fixation. Okay, in one cycle, one carbon atom get fixed. In case of glucose production, they need 6 carbon atom. So 6 times the cycle should be repeated. 6 turns of cycle will produce 6 carbon atom. That means 1 molecule. To get 1 molecule of glucose, this Calvin cycle should repeat 6 times. You got the idea? Okay, then only they will get 6 carbon atom. That means 1 glucose molecule. So you can think how fast the cycle is this. Okay, you can imagine that how fast this all things happening. This is not a slow process, it's a fast process. Then only 1 molecule can be produced as possible as they can. Okay, so this is Calvin cycle. This is the dark phase. This happens in the stroma of chloroplast. Okay, so here you have to think, or you have to remember, not think, you have to remember the names of chemicals. That's it. Okay, so here the usage of molecules. Okay, 1 molecule of glucose, for the synthesis of 1 molecule of glucose, the 6 turns of Calvin cycle should be completed. That I already mentioned you. So you got that idea. So if normally in case of Calvin cycle, each carbon dioxide require 3 ATP. For 1 carbon dioxide molecule, it need 3 ATP. That means if 6 carbon dioxide, for the production of 6 carbon dioxide, each one need 3 ATP. Totally for 6 carbon dioxide, how much we need? We need 18 ATP. Okay, so 6 carbon dioxide means this is a 1 molecule of glucose. 1 glucose molecule need 18 ATP. 18 ATP is required for the production of 1 glucose molecule. And in case of NADPH also, 1 carbon dioxide need 2 NADPH. 1 carbon dioxide molecule need 2 NADPH. NADPH is a high energy form, that you know. So for 1 glucose molecule, 12 NADPH is required. Okay, 12 NADPH is required. Why I am saying this? You can get an idea of how much ATPs, how much NADPH are required to get a 1 glucose molecule. So how much energy a cell needed to produce the glucose molecules. Okay, that's why these ATPs and NADPH are stored inside the cell. That's why we called them energy currency of cell. You got it? Okay, so here for 6 carbon dioxide, some inputs and outputs of Calvin cycle, 6 carbon dioxide produce what? 1 glucose molecule, and 18 ATP become 18 ADP, because there is only the phosphate groups are donated. Okay, that's why there is no reduction of number, there is only reduction of phosphate groups. And 12 NADPH become 12 NADP plus. It's a low energy form. Here also there is no reduction of number of molecules, there is only reduction of what? Electrons. Okay, so this is what happens as an event in Calvin cycle. So Calvin cycle is very important for the carbon dioxide fixation. The fixed carbon dioxide is used to produce 6 carbon compound called glucose. It is the storage form of energy. That's why light reaction and dark reaction are very important. In light reaction, ATP and NADPH are formed. They are utilized in the dark reaction, and finally they produce 6 carbon compound glucose, which is needed for the life process of the plant. You got it? What I am saying, you got it? If you have doubts, you can ask. Okay? Okay. So that's about Calvin cycle. Okay. So thank you. Thank you for your cooperation. Thank you. Goodbye.